Good boy, Tucker.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
Work smarter where you want.
Consistency is key.
And remember, if it's not in Redtail, it never happened.
This is learning at its most fun.
But hello, everyone. My name is Catherine. Thank you for joining us on another Thursday webinar. Today, we're going to be tackling the Redtail essentials regarding notes. So if you've been joining us for the last 4 weeks, so over the last month, we've been spending our lovely time in the wonderful world of workflows. So it's going to be kind of fun. We're mixing it up a little bit this week, and we're going to go over the all-important note section. So hang in there with me. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the QA, not the chat area, just the QA section. If I can, I'll answer them as they go. If not, I will make sure I get all questions answered at the end of our webinar. So let me go ahead. We will hop into our database here. All right. So we should be good to go here. And if you are just joining us in now, no worries. We're just going to start on the Today page, which is my home page here. Some of you might not have this as your first login page, which is perfectly fine. But we're going to start here just so we can go over the specific recently added notes. So if we're on the Today page, we click on this Notes button. It's actually just going to show us the recently added. So we can just see the last 7 days. We can see the last, as you can see, there's a little bit more. And then if we change it to the last 3 days, we'll get a little bit shorter until finally we're in that last 24 hours where it's just the one note I added a few seconds ago, just so we can have this beautiful screen here. So if you wanted to just see what's been happening in the last 24, 3 days, or 7 days in regards to notes, this is going to be your best friend, just this quick section to capture it. As you can see, you can also see notes by user over here. Tucker has been very busy compared to everyone else, so we have that number, as well as our notes by year. But this section on the Today page is strictly your recently added notes. Now, in terms of notes, because this is the one thing we tend to get a lot, notes are going to be your record keeping for everything that has already happened. So we're working in the past, literally. Anything that's upcoming or is in the future, that is your actual activity section. So that's going to be another webinar in a couple weeks. So for now, though, we are literally going to work in the past and everything that has already happened. So we've got our recently added notes. How do you actually add notes? So if you've been working in the Redtail CRM, you know that there's actually multiple ways to get the same thing done. So the first way that you can add a note is just by picking on our plus sign. I call these our Fab 5 icons. So our first of our Fab 5 is our quick add. So if we click this plus sign, and we come down and we pick notes, it's actually going to have this new notes section. The one thing you do have to keep in mind, just make sure you link a contact, because otherwise it's just a note out there with nothing attached to it, which is kind of defeating the purpose. So make sure you have an actual contact link. So for today, I'm actually going to pick Mr. Fantastic 4 here. We're going to pick Reed Richards here. And as you can see, if you start typing, it is going to automatically populate. If you keep going, it is going to try to create a new contact. So let's stick with just our Reed Richards. Click it, and it's going to link our contact. So in here, we just got off the phone with him. He wanted to let us know that he actually, so Reed called us and let us know that he changed his phone number, which is always helpful because if we tried calling him tomorrow, we probably would have had the wrong number. So we'll update that. He also wants to schedule a meeting to discuss his account ending in 2423. So you can keep notes simple as you'd like. It could be as really quick, just little jot. I have seen it where people have actually made a template for each scenario. So the second someone picks up the phone and calls, there's a template for them to fill out on a Word document, and then they copy over what's in that Word document into here, which is perfectly fine. It makes it very consistent and very precise. So if that is something that you'd like to do, by all means, go for it. Just remember to copy and paste it, and then you're good to go. Now, there are a few kind of like house rules that kind of go with notes. First things first is we'll check for spelling. So if you've got a whole bunch of just blah, 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 you're going to get this red line that's going to obviously tell you, girl, what are you doing? Please fix the spelling. That's horrible. So make sure you do that, because you cannot actually edit a note. We work with a lot of independent broker dealers who have the strictest rules to follow, especially regarding that FINRA and SEC guidelines. So we don't think the juice is worth the squeeze and allowing the alteration of the actual note itself. So there is no way to edit a note. There's only a way to add a comment, which I'll show you in a few minutes. But once this is in here and you click the save note, it's done. That's final for this part. So we'll keep it simple to start with, though. We'll just have this as our note. And then we're going to actually come down and we're going to pick our next kind of fill in the blank section, which is our category. This list might seem really familiar, especially if you've been listening in on us for the workflow. This is actually the exact same category list that we have for our workflows and our activities. So it can seem very familiar. If you're really new to the system, you might only have these 5 initial defaults, which is perfectly fine. I do recommend, though, adding in those custom categories so that way you can really make it unique to your actual company, which we have a couple of articles and I think actually a couple of videos on where to go to actually update this category list, but it's actually going to be under managed database list. So that's in our help desk. It's a really easy, quick follow on the actual article itself. So I recommend watching that section or just taking a quick look at that. So for this one though, we're just going to have client meeting notes. We'll keep it kind of simple there. And then the next options are going to be kind of similar. So we have either a notify user or notify a team. So a user is going to be an individual for your actual account. So in our instance, I'm logged in as Tucker McLaughlin. If I want to be notified, I can actually put myself there. If we have it where it's a couple of advisors or like a secretary and advisor or a couple of secretaries, whatever the combo may be, if you have a team that needs to be notified that this note has been added, you can definitely pick that. So, I'm going to actually pick on the client service team. I'm going to have them get notified today as well. The next section that's a little option here is copy to another contact. So if you have this note that wants to get added or needs to be either or to another contact that you have in your system, you can actually go ahead and fill in that name here. So in this instance, Reed Richards is actually married to Sue Storm. I could go ahead and link in another contact, which she's actually not popping up right now, but you could have another contact linked from here. If you don't add it here and you realize later down the road that it does actually need to be on that contact, you are perfectly fine. We do still have that kind of like fix later on, a patch job, as you like to say. So there is that option later on, but you can copy to another contact later on. All right. And then the next section here we have is permission type, which is pretty self-explanatory. User, again, is an individual user. So if I was the only one who wanted to see this note, I could limit it to just myself. Or again, if I just wanted the client service team to see this, then the client service team could be the one that just see it. In this instance, I'm not going to limit this. I want everyone who's within my database to see this. So I'm not going to set the permission type. I'm going to leave that as is. The last little drop down section we have is your accounts. So in this instance, I actually referenced, I put accounting. Here we go. Account ending in 2423. I'll go ahead and I'll fix and I'll attach actually this account that's ending in 2423. So if it was just a very general, he didn't even mention this sentence here just to let us know he changed his phone number, I could leave this blank and it would be perfectly fine. But since we do have that, we might as well attach that account. The last item that you can do from this particular section of our quick add of notes is actually a follow-up activity. So if we had this situation, he wants to schedule a meeting, and we actually established before we got off that phone call that, hey, it's actually going to take place next Thursday at 10 a.m., I could click this box and it would actually create a follow-up. It's going to immediately, once I click save note, bring me to that activities page. So I could do that from this instance. I'll go ahead and actually, I will do that just so you guys can see. It immediately brings me to that activity details and our contacts already attached. I could just change those dates. The linked notes already in there, the linked accounts already in there. So it's literally just making the meeting for this particular activity. So that's how you do it from a quick add. Another way that you can actually add a note is from the contact record itself. So if I'm on the today page, and I didn't want to do a quick add, I actually needed to go and look at something on Reed Richards. I'll go ahead and I'll pull them open. and I'm on his account, and I'm actually going to click latest notes here. So the latest notes is actually going to display the last 5 or 6 notes that have been entered. It can be a little bit more, just really depends on the actual amount in that note. So if it's a lengthy note, chances are high you're going to have a little bit less than that 5 or 6 amount. If they're nice and short, kind of like these ones are, then you will see that 5 or 6 displayed here. And then as you can kind of probably see over here, we have that add note section. So if we click this, it's going to look very, very similar to what we just did in that quick add. The only difference is there was no option to link to a contact because we're already in that Reed Richards contact itself. And as you can see, we had the add note. So you really do know that you're in that, pretty obvious right then and there. And then you could just add it from there. The one thing I did not point out on the quick add, and that's because we weren't in the record itself, and that's where you're seeing that, is the show drafts at the very, very bottom here. So if you're just looking here, if you scroll your eyes down in this hyperlink baby blue, you'll see show drafts. What this is saying is that if you're giving Leo Tolstoy a run for his money and writing the War and Peace novel of notes, and you accidentally click out, this show drafts is going to show you anything that had been basically you've been typing up but didn't actually get saved. And I'll go ahead and I'll show you as an example. I'll go ahead and I'll write, let's see if I can come up with a lengthy one here. So Reed also wanted to discuss what his future options are, specifically regarding retirement, because who doesn't want to retire one day? He would prefer to retire somewhere, let's type correctly, somewhere other than New York City, since it seems to be attacked all the time. He wants beachfront property, but have enough assets, monetary, for his children, and blah, 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 so on and so forth. So if I have this going here and I'm still writing it out, but someone walks in and they start asking me questions, or if you're like me, you just get fat fingers, you just accidentally close it out and you're like, oh my, no, 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 no. And you start that mini panic. Well, the good news is, like I said, you're actually going to find those in that draft. So if you actually click on add note again, scroll down and click on that show drafts, scroll down until you find today's date. Here it is. We'll go ahead and click copy. So click on the little action icon. And again, this goes throughout the whole CRM. Anytime you see this little circle with the caret downwards, that's an action icon. That means you can do something with it. So we'll go ahead and copy that note. And as you can see, it actually auto-populates pretty much back up here. It does basically save every 25 characters. So you might have it where the note itself is missing a few words. Honestly, that's perfectly fine in my book. I'd rather be missing a few words than the whole thing. I would rather not do the same thing 20 times. So just kind of keep that in mind, is that it's every 25 characters that it will save. So, I'll go ahead and I'll save this one as well. Let me see if I have one for retirement. I don't. How in the world? So we'll go ahead, we'll talk about as family planning. That's perfectly fine. And I'm going to have Tucker get notified this time. And I'm going to set permission as, no permission. Hide that, no contacts or no accounts to be added, and I'll save that note. So here we go. Here's that first note we added in earlier with that account ending in 2423. And then here's the note that we just added in here regarding that saved draft. So again, these are your latest notes. Quick add or add note are your options in terms of adding. So I know the next question is, well, where are the rest of my notes? I need to see something further than April 23rd in terms of notes. So if you actually come over to this left-hand menu over here, you'll see his name, accounts, activities, documents, notes. Go ahead and click on notes. All right, it's thinking, there we go. And you're actually brought to the notes for Reed Richards in all of its glory history. So here's the 2 that we've added today, some from last Monday, some from March. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. We actually have some back from 2015. So here's going to be your notes history in a bundle. this is your section. So again, to get there, left menu, and then click on notes, and it'll bring you to this page. Now, there are a few more options in terms of what you can do with a note. You can always move the notes. So if you happen to have, Reed Richards just, he didn't survive Thanos' snap. Unfortunately, that happened, but Sue Storm did. And we accidentally didn't copy all of these notes over to her. We could move all of these notes over to Sue Storm. I don't know why she's not popping up for me right now. But if she was, I'm sorry about that. She seems to be not cooperating. Let me see if I can get her open. But if we had it, we could move all of those notes over to her. So if it is the deceased, we could move all of the notes over instead of copying one by one. That is an option. You could also copy individual notes though as well. So if this one does apply to her, but this one necessarily doesn't, you could click on this action icon and copy to a contact, and then you just pick your contact from here as well. So you just put that in, copy, and then it sends it over to that contact's record. You do also have the option to pin the note. So if we find this is a really, really important note that we want to stay at the top of our note history, we can actually go ahead and pin it, and then it'll stay towards the top of our screen. So we don't have to keep scrolling and going, where in the world? I know I typed it. What happened? It pins it right to the top, so you don't have to go ahead and search for that. It's really convenient if you've got one that needs to be of the most importance. A couple other things you can always do. You can change the category. So again, you can't edit the notes, and that's due to the lovely FINRA and SEC guidelines that we unfortunately are working in, but you can change the category itself. So I actually picked client meeting notes. If I actually wanted this to be, let's see here, if I actually wanted this to be, let's do money movement. If I went to that update notes, it'll update that section here. If I had it where, it's not the account ending in 2423, you can always link a different account in here. So if it was actually account ending in 2153, I can click that, update account linked, and then update that section by saying wrong account attached, updated linked account. Add that comment, and this itself is also date, time, and user stamped as well. So they're all notes. You will find that it's going to have the date and time over in the right hand corner here. So we have this as today, and then the time, and then who actually did it. So always date, time, and user stamped, and your comments are the same way as well. So if you just click on that, you'll see that in here as well. The last little thing that you can do from this particular section is actually going to be your note filter section. So over here, if you didn't want to see, any general information notes and you wanted to know everything regarding money movement, you can change that category. Come on down, pick that money movement category, click apply, and it's actually going to display only the categories of money movement. You could as well, so if I wanted to see all my notes, it'll default if you just have it as all category. And if you want to click it, the easiest way I always just select all and then unclick it. It's far easier than scrolling. If you're lazy like I am, it is perfectly fine. You could also show the family note. So if you check this box here, click apply, you'll see anything that has been attached to the Richards family. So we have a couple more that have populated in. If you saw earlier, it took me only a few moments to scroll. I can keep scrolling. We almost double all of those. And there's actually still more loading. So there's far more when you get in with the family note. So you don't have to toggle between all of the notes on Sue Storms just to see the ones that might have been linked together. So you do have that option as well. A couple other things here, not necessarily like the utmost, but you could always change the permissions here. You can also look at the timeline, and you can also print it from here. So you do have a couple of options. Again, you can't edit it, but you can always add the comment. But the one thing I will always stress is that it is going to look for typos. So just make sure you read over your note before you actually click save as the note. So here is our note section. The last thing I'm actually going to do, this is going to be a pretty quick webinar here, is our notes reports. We actually only have one. So if we scroll over on our left-hand side here, scroll actually right below more, we'll click on reports. Scroll down until we find note reports. And then we are only presented with our notes by contact report. We'll go ahead and click that. I actually ran pretty quick here. I'm so glad. And here you have everything in terms of notes within your system. You can limit it to a specific thing. You can just export it, which is going to be an Excel document to your computer. You can also PDF if that's how you prefer it. But the one really great thing in terms of filtering, you can have it by a specific date. So if you want to know all of the notes added between the beginning of April to the end of April, you can change those dates. Whoops, not May. There we go, April. You can also just look up just the contact itself, or maybe you wanted to know all of the notes that just you have added. So if you scroll down to the user, you can find yourself, click Tucker, and just display those particular ones. So you can get very, very limited. You can keep it as broad as you'd like. But this is really helpful if you just need a quick screenshot of maybe who the servicing advisor is with that notes, what those note categories were, or what those users are. And then you apply that filter and you get that report, which again, you can either export at that time as an Excel document if you need that for certain record keeping, or if you need to have a PDF version of it, you can run a PDF version of that as well. So that is pretty much notes in a nutshell. Just keep in mind, everything is really important if it's already happened to put it in as a note. So again, the notes from the today page as well as the top here, that's your recently added. You can add a note to a contact via quick add or from the contact record itself. All of the contact notes are going to be displayed within the actual contact record. If you come over to the notes section, and then you can always display those family notes or just those individuals, move, copy, add comments, change those categories. And then lastly, always run a notes by contact report. So that is actually our Redtail Essential Notes in a nutshell here. Just remember to keep it as consistent and efficient as physically possible. And remember that if it's not in Redtail, it never happened.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.